I was a few hours shy of turning 50 when my father, gone nearly 4 years now, stepped into my dream as if he'd merely been away on an errand. I saw him standing in the doorway of my bedroom, in that worn navy cardigan I'd knitted for him the winter before he passed. His shoulders, straight as ever. His expression, stern in a way I hadn't seen since childhood. "Marion," he said. Not whispered, not murmured, said, with the full weight of a warning. "Don't you wear that dress he gave you. You hear me? Don't put it on." 3 times he repeated it, each word crisp, cold, unnervingly urgent. And then he faded, not walked away, not turned, faded like fog dissolving under the sun. I woke so violently that I nearly slid off the bed. My nightgown clung to me as if I'd been dragged out of a lake, and my heart hammered against my ribs like it was begging to be freed. I sat up, gasping for air, and the room seemed wrong. Too quiet, too dim, too heavy. Beside me, my husband, David, slept peacefully on his side. Not even a twitch, not even a stir. His calm breathing felt like a stranger's. I slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen, my legs weak as reeds. I poured myself some water, but my hands trembled so badly half of it spilled on the counter. I pressed the cool glass to my forehead, willing the dream to fade, but it stayed sharp as a knife blade. My father had never been one for melodrama, in life or apparently in death. I drank the water, sat at the kitchen table, and closed my eyes for just a second. But the moment I did, there he was again, standing exactly where he had in the dream, framed by the doorway, eyes full of warning. It wasn't one of those strange, drifting dreams you forget by breakfast. It had been so real my skin still prickled with the echo of his voice. And then the dress floated into my mind, the one David had given me 2 weeks ago, wrapped in tissue paper, tied with a ribbon, presented with a flourish he rarely used. A deep forest green evening gown, heavy satin, hand-stitched beading, tailored just for me. He had insisted, that I wear it for my birthday dinner. Now, at 5 in the morning, wrapped in the shadows of my kitchen, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Fear. Not the fear of nightmares. The fear of truth. Because my father had never warned me lightly. Not when he was alive, and certainly not now. And that dress, that beautiful, shimmering dress, suddenly felt like a loaded secret hanging in my closet. And before that day ended, I would discover that my father's warning wasn't symbolic, it was literal, and the dress was hiding something far darker than I could have imagined. By mid-morning, the dream still clung to me like smoke. I tried to go about my chores, folded laundry, watered the plants, prepped a bit for the dinner David insisted on throwing, but every small task seemed to exist under the same dark cloud. I couldn't shake the image of my father's eyes in that dream. They weren't loving or sorrowful. They were warning me with the same sharp tone he used the day he caught me trying to sneak onto a neighbor's motorcycle at 15. "Marion, some things hide danger under a shining coat," he'd said back then. I heard that same voice echoing all morning. Finally, I walked toward the hallway closet, the one where the dress hung. I felt ridiculous for hesitating. It was just fabric, just a gift, just a gesture of love, wasn't it? When I slid open the closet door, a cold draft brushed my arms. It was probably nothing, an old house and its old vents, but I stepped back anyway. The dress hung there in its long garment bag, glossy and pristine, like it was waiting for me. Watching me, I unzipped the bag slowly, and the scent of new satin drifted out. The gown shimmered even in the dim hallway light, deep forest green, like something a woman would wear to an enchanted ballroom. David had impeccable taste, I'll give him that. The beading at the neckline caught the light like tiny droplets of emerald dew. But there was something off, a heaviness to it, almost like the fabric resisted when I lifted it off the hanger, as if it didn't want to be touched. I checked the seams, the lining, the zipper, all normal. Still, my stomach twisted. Maybe this is what grief does, I told myself. Maybe turning 50 is messing with me. Maybe I just miss my father more than I let myself believe. I pressed the gown back into its bag and zipped it closed. When I turned around, David stood at the end of the hallway. I nearly jumped. He wasn't the sneaky type, yet there he was, silent, smiling too gently, holding a small box. "Morning, birthday girl," he said. "I thought you'd still be asleep." His tone was cheerful, but his eyes flicked past me toward the closet, quick, but enough for me to catch it. A look that didn't match the smile. "What were you doing?" he asked lightly. "Just organizing," I replied, trying not to sound shaken. He stepped closer and placed the small box into my hands. "Another little gift," he whispered. "Wear it with the dress tonight. It'll make the night unforgettable." I swallowed hard. Unforgettable. The word hit me like ice. When David walked into the kitchen, humming as though everything was perfect, I felt the quiet tremor of dread tightening around my chest. Something was wrong, and the dress was only the beginning. But it wasn't the dress or the dream that broke the truth open. It was what I found inside David's small gift, a clue I was never meant to see. I carried the little box into the living room, my palms damp with unease. It was beautifully wrapped, as all of David's gifts were: silver paper, dark green ribbon, tied with the kind of precision decorators use on department store displays. He had always been meticulous, but lately it felt like he was performing a version of himself, as though the perfect husband was a role he needed to sell. I sat down on the sofa and turned the box over in my hands. My father's warning rattled inside me like a trapped bird. "Don't wear that dress." What did the dress have to do with this little box? Nothing, I told myself. Absolutely nothing. But fear rarely listens to reason. I untied the ribbon, slipped the lid free. Inside, nestled in white velvet, was a necklace. Gold. Heavy. Decorative. A teardrop-shaped emerald at the center, surrounded by tiny diamonds that glittered like frost. It was breathtaking. But it wasn't the beauty that chilled me. It was the engraving on the back. Someone's name. A woman's name. "For Elise, my forever." My breath caught. The room swayed. Elise. I didn't know an Elise. We didn't have an Elise in our family. None of David's sisters, cousins, or female friends had that name. And the phrase, "my forever," was not the casual sort of dedication you'd give to a business partner or old teacher. My hands shook as I snapped the box shut. I couldn't breathe. Not because the necklace was meant for another woman, but because David must have known it was engraved. He must have known I'd see it. So why give it to me? Why today? Why with the dress? I stood from the couch, feeling the ground tilt beneath me, when David's voice floated from the kitchen. "Did you open it yet?" Not curious, not excited, just checking. I forced my voice to stay steady. "Not yet." His footsteps didn't move. He didn't come toward me. He didn't insist on watching me open it, the way he usually did with gifts. He was waiting. Waiting for what? I set the little box on the coffee table and pressed my shaking hands against my skirt. I needed answers, but I couldn't let him know I was suspicious. Not yet. So I walked back toward the kitchen, my smile thin and brittle. "David," I asked softly, "who's Elise?" He looked up from the cutting board, a half-chopped onion before him, and smiled like I'd asked the most charming question in the world. "Elise," he repeated lightly. "Just open the gift first." That's when I saw it. A flash in his eyes. Not surprise. Not confusion. A flicker of calculation. And my father's warning tightened its grip around my heart. I didn't know it then, but the name in that necklace would unravel the life I thought I knew, and reveal the first crack in a truth far darker than betrayal. I watched David chop vegetables with the same easy rhythm he'd used for years, as though nothing in the world was amiss. His shoulders relaxed, his humming soft, his face warmed by the yellow kitchen light. Anyone else would have believed the illusion, the devoted husband preparing a birthday dinner. But once you see the crack in the mask, you can't unsee it. And that necklace, that engraving. I leaned against the doorframe, pretending the question had slipped casually from my lips. "So you won't tell me who Elise is?" David wiped his hands on a towel and picked up a lemon, slicing it into thin wheels. He didn't look at me, didn't laugh, didn't ask why I was curious. Instead, he said, "Marion, today is supposed to be special. Let's not ruin it with silly questions." Silly questions. My heart thudded once, hard. He placed the lemon slices neatly along the edge of a platter, each one spaced evenly, like perfection had become a rule he couldn't break. I forced a smile. "You're right. It's nothing." He nodded, relaxed again. But the moment he turned his back, a chill slid through me. His shoulders, usually broad and confident, were tense, drawn inward, defensive. His movements were still precise, but now they were quickened, sharpened. He wanted to finish, to move, to keep me from lingering. As if conversation itself was dangerous, I slipped out of the kitchen quietly and returned to the living room. The box sat where I'd left it. I lifted the lid again, staring at the necklace. Who was Elise? Why would David hide her name behind a ribbon and a birthday smile? And why did my father, dead, gone, buried, warn me about the dress? Not the necklace, not the name, the dress. A sudden, terrible thought struck me. What if the dress wasn't a warning about romance, but about danger? Real danger. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the engraving. My hands trembled, so much the first one came out blurry. The second was barely better, but readable. For Elise, my forever. A message meant for someone loved, cherished, possibly promised. A message not meant for a wife. I tucked the phone into my pocket and took a steadying breath. I had planned to confront him, but something deeper, older, whispered within me. Not yet, Marion. Watch. Listen. Wait. It was the same voice my father used when teaching me how to survive the world's silent dangers, the ones hidden behind polite smiles. And I would need every ounce of that wisdom now. Because when I returned to the kitchen, I heard something that froze me in place. David on the phone. Voice hushed. Tone urgent. No, she hasn't figured it out, he whispered. Tonight will go as planned. My stomach dropped. Tonight. As planned. I didn't know what tonight meant yet, but before the sun went down, I would discover that the plan had been set long before I ever dreamed of my father, and I was never meant to survive it. I froze in the hallway, halfway between the kitchen light and the living room shadows. David's voice was low, not frantic, not angry, but controlled. The kind of tone a man uses when he's carefully choosing every word. No, he repeated softly. She doesn't suspect anything. I'm handling it. My pulse throbbed in my ears. He paused, listened. Yes, tonight. I told you. Everything is set. Everything is set. I pressed myself against the wall, my fingertips cold. The house suddenly felt unfamiliar. The wallpaper too patterned, the air too still, the silence too thick. A place I had lived for decades now wrapped itself around me like a stranger's coat. He ended the call quickly. No goodbye, no sigh, no lingering pause, just a clean, sudden snap of finality. Footsteps. Getting closer. I slipped back into the living room and pretended to adjust a vase of flowers on the side table. My hands shook, and I prayed he wouldn't notice. The air shifted as he stepped into the room. Everything okay? He asked lightly. I turned with a smile I didn't feel. Of course. Just making sure the house looks nice. He scanned my face. For a moment, I wondered if he could hear the panic thudding in my chest. But then he walked toward me and placed a gentle kiss on my forehead. You're worrying too much today, he murmured. Let me make this night unforgettable. There it was again. Unforgettable. Like a warning dressed as kindness. His hand lingered a moment too long on my shoulder before he went to retrieve wine glasses from the cabinet. I watched him with new eyes, or perhaps old eyes that had finally woken up. I stepped into the hallway, my knees unsteady, and moved toward my bedroom. I needed to think. I needed space. I needed clarity. The moment I entered the dim room, I felt it, the presence of that dream returning like a tide. My father's voice, the dress, the warning. I opened my closet and stared at the garment bag. The zipper shimmered like a silver blade. My heart pounded as I reached for it, not to wear the dress, but to understand it. Because now I was certain the dress wasn't a birthday gift. It was a tool, a piece of a plan he had made with someone named Elise. I unzipped the garment bag again and ran my fingers along the seams, slower this time. More deliberate, more afraid. That's when my fingertips hit something hard, hidden, sewn between the inner lining and outer satin. A small, thin object. I pressed the seam. The shape was unmistakable. A razor blade. My vision blurred. My knees buckled. The room spun. This dress, this beautiful, shimmering gown was meant to cut me, to kill me. And David, my husband, the man humming in the kitchen, had planned everything. But the razor wasn't the only thing hidden in that dress, and the second discovery would lead me to the truth behind Elise and the real reason David needed me gone. I stood there trembling, the dress hanging from my hands like a serpent I'd just discovered had fangs. My breath came in thin, shaky threads as I pressed the seam again, feeling the sharp edge hidden beneath the satin. A razor blade, narrow, thin, perfectly positioned right where my side would rest. If I moved too quickly, if I danced, if I stumbled, even slightly, the blade would slice deep enough to make it look like an accident. A tragic fall, a tragic cut, a birthday tragedy. My throat tightened, so hard I couldn't swallow. But something deep inside me, something older, wiser, whispered that there was more. This wasn't just about hurting me. This was too meticulous, too layered, too thought out. David wasn't a spontaneous man. He planned, prepared, polished. So I examined the gown again, inch by inch, touching every stitch, every fold, every corner of the lining. When my fingers reached the hem, I felt it a bump. Not sharp like the razor, but square, flat, a small rectangle sewn into the fabric. I carefully pulled the lining back and saw a tiny black box, no bigger than a matchbook, embedded deep between the stitches. A tracker, a listening device, or something worse. My heart hammered as I traced the tiny wires feeding into the inner layer. I didn't dare tug or cut anything. I didn't know whether it was wired to activate something, or signal something, or record something. My body broke into a cold sweat. This wasn't a simple plan. This was a setup, a story being crafted, a narrative prepared for after I was gone. And the razor, the device, the engraved necklace, Elise, they were all threads in the same web. The room tilted for a moment, and I gripped the closet doorframe to keep myself upright. The house felt too still, like it was listening, like it was waiting. I forced myself to breathe, long and slow, and hung the dress back up. I zipped the garment bag carefully, as though sealing away a creature that might lash out if I startled it. Then I wiped my trembling hands on my skirt and stepped into the hallway. From the kitchen, I heard David humming again. A soft, almost cheerful tune. I recognized it. A song he always whistled when he was satisfied with himself. My knees almost buckled. I needed time. I needed a plan. I needed someone to trust. But trust was a rare currency, and I wasn't sure I had any left in this house. Still, my father's warning had saved me once already. His voice echoed in my mind like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. "Don't wear the dress." I whispered back, "I won't, Papa. I promise." Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message. Unknown number. 3 words. "He's not alone." My blood ran cold. Those 3 words weren't just a warning. They were the key that would lead me straight to Elise and to a truth more dangerous than the dress itself. For a long moment, I just stared at the message on my screen. "He's not alone." The words felt jagged, like they'd been carved into my skin rather than typed onto a screen. My first instinct was to look toward the kitchen, toward David, but I forced myself not to. Sudden movements could tip him off. My heartbeat felt loud enough to shake the walls, and yet I moved with the practiced calm I'd learned as a mother, a wife, and now, a woman fighting to survive her own home. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and walked slowly to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. Only then did I sink onto the closed toilet lid, my hands trembling, so hard I had to press them together just to keep steady. Another buzz. Another message. "Do not confront him." I swallowed. Hard. Who was this? A stranger? A friend? One of David's conspirators playing some twisted game? Or was this Elise? The thought made my hands go cold. I typed back with stiff fingers. "Who are you?" A pause. A long one. Then, "Someone who knows what he's capable of." My skin prickled. The bathroom felt too small, too close. I forced slow breaths, the kind you take when you're trying not to panic in front of children. Another message came almost immediately. "He didn't plan this alone. You were never supposed to see the engraving." I pressed a hand over my chest. There it was, the confirmation I didn't want, but needed. The necklace had been meant for someone else. But not as a gift. As a reward. A promise. My fingers hovered over my phone. I typed, "Are you Elise?" This time, the pause stretched so long I thought the conversation was over. Then the 3 dots appeared. Typing. Stopping. Typing again. Finally. "No. But I know her." A rush of air left me, half relief, half new dread. My reflection in the mirror across from me looked pale, older than I remembered. 50 years of living had taught me many lessons about love, patience, survival, but nothing prepared me for the idea that my husband had help in planning whatever this was. Another message appeared. She's not with him tonight. He's working with someone else. You need to leave the house quietly. Leave. Now. Without him noticing. My throat tightened. I typed, "Why should I trust you?" This time, the reply came instantly. "Because your life depends on it. Check the back door. The sensor is disabled." My breath hitched. Only David and I knew about the security system. Someone else knew too. My hands went numb as I stood up. I unlocked the bathroom door and stepped into the hallway. Every sound amplified. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint clatter of David setting plates, the ticking of a hallway clock marking each second I had left. The message had said I wasn't alone. And suddenly, I wasn't sure which truth terrified me more. That someone was watching over me, or that someone else was already inside my home. But when I reached the back door, ready to escape, I didn't find freedom. I found the first real clue about Elise and the person helping David from the shadows. I moved down the hallway slowly, my footsteps barely brushing the floorboards. The house felt like it was holding its breath. I could hear David humming in the kitchen, that same eerie, contented tune, as if he were preparing a celebration rather than a trap. My hand grazed the wall for support as I made my way to the back of the house. The message had said the sensor was disabled. Only 2 people knew how to do that, me and David. And if someone else knew too, then this story was bigger than a dress and a necklace. When I reached the mudroom, the air felt colder. The back door stood at the end like a silent promise, a way out, a lifeline. And there, at the base of the doorframe, I saw it. A small piece of tape, nearly invisible, flesh-colored, placed directly over the magnetic sensor. To the security system, the door appeared closed even when it wasn't. I touched it gently, and my breath shuddered out of me. The person texting me wasn't guessing. They knew. They had been here, or they had access. For a moment, I imagined myself opening the door, stepping out, running into the night like a frightened girl. But then another thought stopped me cold. If someone had been inside this house without my knowledge, what else had they touched? My stomach tightened. I bent down, pretending to tie my shoe in case David walked in. My fingers brushed something beneath the shoe rack. A small folded piece of paper, almost lost in the shadows. My heart hammered as I picked it up and slowly unfolded it. A photograph. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was a picture of a woman, young, beautiful, long dark hair, warm smile, taken at a seaside restaurant. In the corner, written in looping handwriting, were 2 words. For Elise. But it wasn't the woman that made my knees weaken. It was the man beside her. David, my husband, his arm around her waist, his head tilted toward hers with the tenderness I hadn't seen from him in years. And on her neck, the emerald necklace, the same one he had placed in my hands that morning. A wave of nausea crashed over me. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a replacement, a transfer, a life swap, a woman waiting in the wings while I was being edged toward an unfortunate accident on my 50th birthday. And whoever texted me, whoever warned me, wasn't Elise. But they knew her. And they knew him. My hands shook so violently, I nearly dropped the photograph. Another message buzzed on my phone. He's coming. Stay quiet. I froze. Footsteps approached the hallway. Slow. Measured. Too close. The doorknob turned. But the person who appeared in that doorway was not David, and their identity shattered everything I thought I knew about who was helping me and why. The doorknob turned slowly, too slowly, as if the person on the other side was listening for any sign of movement. My breath caught in my throat. I clutched the photograph so tightly the edges bent against my palm. If it was David, if he saw the picture, the tape, my shaking hands, he would know. And the moment he knew, whatever he had planned for tonight would happen now. The door eased open an inch. Then 2. I braced myself, ready to run, scream, fight anything. But the face that peeked through wasn't David's. It was a young woman. Wide, frightened eyes. Hair pulled under a cap. Breathing fast. like she had sprinted through the night. My heart stopped. She whispered, "Marian? Are you alone?" My voice trembled. "Who are you?" She stepped inside and gently closed the door behind her, keeping her voice low and urgent. "My name is Jenna," she said. "I'm Elisa's sister." The photograph slipped from my fingers. She crouched quickly and gathered it, pressing it back into my hands like something sacred. "I don't have much time," she whispered. "He checks everything. The cameras, the locks, the car logs. I had to disable your back sensor yesterday, so I could get in tonight." Yesterday, meaning this plan had been in place long before I found the razor. Long before the necklace. Long before the dream. My knees felt weak. I leaned against the wall. "Why are you helping me?" Jenna swallowed hard. Tears gathered in her eyes but didn't fall. "Because he did the same thing to Elise." The world around me stilled. The air thickened. "What?" I whispered. She nodded, her voice breaking. "He met her. He charmed her. He promised her a life. A future." Her breath hitched. "And then he took out an insurance policy in her name. A huge one. Same as he did for you." I felt my stomach turn. Insurance. Of course. A motive as old as sin. Jenna's hands shook as she continued. "Elise found out too late. He'd already set everything up. The accident happened on a boat. A cut on her leg, a slip, the fall into the water. No one questioned it." I pressed a hand over my mouth, sick with horror. She whispered, "I knew he was doing the same thing to you. Elise told me he had a pattern." Her eyes flicked to the hallway. She said if anything happened to her, it would happen to you next. My body went cold. I looked at the dress hanging in my closet, the razor, the device, the hidden murder stitched into satin, and suddenly Elise was no longer just a name on a necklace. She was a warning, a ghost screaming from her grave. Jenna took my hand, her grip desperate. "You have to leave. Tonight. Right now. Before he notices anything." Just then we heard it. David's humming stopped. The kitchen went silent. And then, slow, deliberate, his footsteps moved toward us. Those footsteps carried the truth I had feared all along, and in the next moment, I would come face to face with the darkest side of the man I once loved. David's footsteps grew louder, steady, unhurried, almost cheerful. But underneath that rhythm, I heard something else. A certainty. A direction. He wasn't searching for me. He was coming straight to me. Jenna's grip tightened. Her whisper trembled, "He knows." Before I could fully understand, the steps stopped right outside my bedroom door. A shadow moved under the frame. Then his voice, soft, almost gentle, drifted through. "Marian, open the door." That tone was worse than shouting. It was the voice of a man who believed the game was already won. Jenna backed toward my window, panic rising. "We have to go now." But I couldn't move. Fear rooted me, heavy and cold. My heart thudded, so loudly I swore he heard it. The doorknob clicked, twisted, turned, and then the door swung open. David stepped inside, framed by the hallway light, smiling like we were about to go out for dinner. His eyes scanned the room until he saw Jenna. His smile vanished. "Ah," he said softly, "so that's how you got ahead of me." Jenna stepped in front of me, her voice shaking but steady. "She knows everything, David." He sighed, not angry, not frightened, but disappointed. "After all these years, Marian, I really thought you would trust me." Trust. The word sliced deeper than any razor hidden in a gown. David took 2 steps closer, hands open as if to soothe a frightened child. "You were never supposed to find out. All you had to do was wear the dress." My breath hitched. That was it. No denial. No excuses. Just cold truth. Jenna moved closer, blocking him. "Don't take another step." He tilted his head. "Or what? You couldn't even save your own sister." Her face broke. Pain spilled across it like ink spreading in water. And suddenly, something inside me, something fragile and frightened, snapped. I stepped out from behind Jenna. "Enough," I said, my voice low but unmistakably mine. "You don't get to hurt another woman. Not again. Not in this house." David stared at me, shocked, like he didn't recognize the woman standing before him. In that second, headlights washed across the living room wall. Then came the slam of a car door. A man's voice outside shouted, "Police." Jenna exhaled sharply. "Oh, thank God." I texted them before I came in. David spun toward the window, panic finally cracking that calm exterior. A second later, Detective Rowan Hale and 2 officers stormed through the front door, weapons drawn. "David Carter! Step away from her!" David froze. Just froze. Then he laughed, a low, broken sound, as if the whole world had suddenly betrayed him. He didn't run. He didn't argue. He simply sank to his knees. When they pulled him up in handcuffs, he looked at me one last time. But I felt nothing. No grief. No rage. Just a quiet, exhausted ending. I survived. They let him out, and silence settled over the house. Heavy but clean. Jenna put her arms around me and I held her tight. 2 women saved by one another. That night, I sat alone in my living room, rocking gently, letting the truth wash through me. Not to drown me. Not anymore. But to free me. And that's the thing, my dears. Sometimes life rips away what we think we can't live without, only to show us we were breathing on borrowed air all along. I learned that night that survival isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's a single, quiet choice. I will not die here. And because I chose that, I get to sit in this old chair today, telling you my story. So maybe, just maybe, you'll trust your own warning signs long before the danger knocks on your door. But you know, that wasn't the last time my father visited me in a dream, and the next time, what he showed me changed the course of my life again.